Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today on the Doctor's review and prognosis, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that just came out in the preview of the new 2024 Player's Handbook. First thing you'll notice is they're not calling it 1D&D. They're just calling it the 2024 Player's Handbook, period. No mention of 1D&D, no mention of 6th edition, no mention of 5th edition, just 2024 Player's Handbook. And it sounds to me like they are just adding stuff to the game or tweaking rules here or there. Very much, I think, like what Pathfinder just did with their 2nd edition expanded set that they had. So, I don't think this is a new edition. I do. From what it looks like it is fully compatible so far from what I have seen with 5th edition. So let's take a look. We're going to look through the weapon masteries. I am going to give a rating after I review each one of them, and we'll see. I doubt any one of them are going to be an S. They don't seem very broken. They just seem to be a little extra something that might go with a character. But again, we haven't seen all the character classes yet. I don't think these are exactly what they are going to be in the Player's Handbook, and I think there's going to be more weapon masteries than this. They're only giving us some, so let's talk about it a little bit. So fighter uses their maul to knock down the opponent. Rogue dances around with a rapier to find the foe's weakness. A barbarian swings a great axe, blah, blah, blah. So they've got this new thing called weapon masteries. And what are weapon masteries? Well, weapon mastery is a class feature shared between some martial classes that reflect their specialization with certain types of weapons. Each weapon in the equipment section of the 2024 Player's Handbook lists a mastery property in addition to the weapon's regular properties. So here's what they look like right now. This is the current Player's Handbook. And you'll notice that there's a property column next to each one of these. And these are things like light, finesse, which means you can use strength or dex. Light means it's ideal for fighting with 2 weapons. Thrown, two-handed means you got to use 2 hands. Versatile means you can do a little bit more damage if you use 2 hands. It's heavy, reach, things like that. So that's what it looks like right now. So I don't know, for instance, that the halberd is going to do 1d10 slashing damage, if it's going to cost 20 gold pieces, if it's going to be 6 pounds, if it's still going to have the heavy reach 2-handed properties. We just don't know as of yet. So my assumption for this video is that yes, they are going to have the same properties, but they're also going to have this mastery feature. So again, weapon mastery is a class feature shared between some martial classes that reflects their specialization. Each weapon in the equipment section will list a mastery property in addition to the weapon's regular properties. If the weapon meets the requirements in your weapon mastery feature, you can learn its weapon mastery property and use it in combat. But learning a mastery property is not permanent. If you stumble across a shiny new +1 longsword, and this is a hyperlink that still goes back to what it is in D&D Beyond, and want to learn its mastery properties instead, don't worry. During a long rest, you can practice weapon drills and swap out one of your weapon choices at the end of the rest. So sounds like these are pretty versatile. Okay, the number of mastery properties you can learn is specified in your class's version of the weapon mastery feature. Rogues, rangers, and paladins can only access 2 mastery properties at a time, whereas barbarians and fighters start with 2 and 3 respectively. So fighters are going to get the most and eventually gain access to more mastery properties as detailed in their features table, which we don't really have. So at level 1, they get access to the mastery properties for certain weapons as listed below. So I am mainly interested in the rogue. Well, I'm interested in all of them, but I like the Gloomstalker Ranger, so I'm interested in that based on weapon proficiencies, simple and martial weapons. The rogue obviously is limited by finesse or light property, simple and martial weapons. And the ones that they list down here kind of point you in the direction or give you the azimuth to like a dagger or a short sword. And I think what they're doing is they're trying to make certain weapons look more attractive to players that weren't really used in or very much at all in 5th edition. And they're going to add a twist to them so that they will be taken more often. So again, paladins based on weapon, this is basically everything. I don't know why. It's based on weapon proficiencies, simple and martial weapons. Are paladins getting different weapon proficiencies than all simple and martial weapons? I don't know. We'll have to see. So mastering weapon masteries. Some subclasses allow you to access more mastery properties. Now, we don't know all the subclasses, and there are going to be some new ones, and that's going to be a different video. But so, for example, the Soul Knife Rogue, and a lot of people take the Soul Knife Rogue, so I think they're trying to make some of these subclasses more attractive so people will use them more often or more frequently. So the Soul Knife Rogue can use the Vex Mastery property with their Psychic Blades, and it does not count towards their Learned Weapon Mastery. So that's one we know, but we only know this one. That's the example they give. We don't know any of the other ones. So how to use them. If you're wielding a weapon and have learned its mastery property, you'll be able to use, and I guess as you go in levels, it'll say learn a mastery property, and then you learn it. And so if you've learned it, you'll be able to use it every turn when you make an attack with the weapon. Now, I'm going to assume that they're not changing the way turns work. And it doesn't say on your turn, it says every turn. Which means opportunity attacks, you can use them. You can use them on your turn with regular attacks. There are some classes that can give people attacks off turn. So I'm going to assume that those could be used that way. So different mastery properties have different triggers. For example, Cleave requires you to hit with a melee attack roll, while Graze triggers when you miss. Okay. Unlike some abilities, there's no limit on how many times mastery properties can be used per short or long rest, so you can go nuts. Okay, so here we go with the overview. The first one, so below we'll cover each of the 8 mastery properties included. So I guess this is the full list. But they only give us examples of one of the weapons for each one. So again, like this first one is Cleave. So the Great Axe, my assumption is the Great Axe stat block is going to look like this. And then there might be another column over here that says Cleave. That'll be the mastery property. So, but we don't know what other weapons are going to have Cleave. I'm going to assume more than one is going to have the Cleave property. So the first one we've got is Cleave. And we know that the Great Axe can use Cleave. But the question now is, what are the other ones that can use Cleave? Okay, so if you'll be wading into the thick of battle, you want to consider grabbing a weapon with the Cleave property. These weapons can slash through opponents. If you hit with a melee weapon attack, you can make, and they use the same verbiage here, so I'm going to assume 5th edition and 2024 Player's Handbook don't change that. You can make a second attack against a creature within 5 feet that is also within your reach. So this is like the old Cleave from 3rd edition. There was Cleave and Great Cleave. With Cleave, you can make one attack. If you hit an initial target, you can make an attack against a second target. And Great Cleave, you can make, I think it was multiple attacks. When you hit with the second attack, you can roll your weapon's damage, but you do not add your ability modifier unless it's negative. So really, you shouldn't be using this if it's negative anyway. This is excellent in combination with the halberd, which has reach and cleave. So there's a second. We've got Great Axe and a halberd, allowing you to cleave into enemies in an extended range. Okay, so reach allows you, adds 5 feet to the range. So the creatures just have to be 5 feet against a creature within 5 feet that is also within your reach. So if the creatures are adjacent to each other and you can hit one, then you can hit the other one. Okay. So what do I think about that? We're going to give that, I think we're going to give that one, an A minus. We'll give that one an A minus. It's pretty good. I think if they still allow Pole Arm Master, which you can use with Halberd, because Halberd is also a heavy two-handed reach weapon. So if Pole Arm Master is still working the same, then you hit one creature, then you can hit a creature next to it. So there's a little bit of crowd control there, and then you use your bonus action to use the butt end. Which allows you to use your ability modifier. So the second attack doesn't allow you to use your ability modifier, but it doesn't say it doesn't allow you to use the magic bonus on it. So there is that. Okay. And Great Weapon Master also is not an ability bonus. So that actually would be pretty good. So that's kind of why I'm giving it an A minus. It's an extra attack where you got a fighter or a barbarian that's, well, let's say it's a fighter who has an 18 strength, so that's a +4, and they're wielding a +1 halberd, so, and they're using Great Weapon Master, so you won't be able to use the +4, but with Great Weapon Master you get the +5 damage, so or +10 to damage, so who cares? Okay, so I think that's a good one. Okay, the next one is Graze, and the example weapon they give us is a Great Sword. So we know Great Sword is not going to have the Cleave property. Graze is an excellent way to increase consistency of your weapon damage. If you miss a creature with your weapon, you deal damage equal to the ability modifier you use to make the roll. This pairs well with abilities that allow you to make a lot of attacks, sort of, like the fighter's extra attack feature, or the Polearm Master, so they do mention this, or the Sentinel feat. It just goes to show that when the weapon is big enough, you don't really need to aim where you're swinging. So you deal damage equal to the ability modifier used to make the roll. So essentially, if you miss, you're going to do some damage no matter what. And I think the reason that they're saying that this goes great with a lot of attacks is if you only hit with half of them, then you're going to do some damage. Whereas before you only do 0. This is okay. It's just okay. I guess they're talking about Polearm Master because you can use the blunt end instead of the bladed end of the polearm. I think this is okay. I'm going to give it a C+. It's not great. It's a little extra something that you can add on to things. I am going to assume that a halberd does not have Graze because it says it has Cleave. I'm going to assume probably, so it does seem like it's going to go along with a polearm. So maybe a glaive, which is heavy and two-handed with reach. And that's basically it. It's not going to go with a whip. So, and there's a lance that has reach, so maybe a lance too. I don't know. We'll have to see. But we know it goes along with Great Sword, so we're going to give that one a C+. It's not great. Okay, Nick. To explain the Nick property, we should briefly cover that being able to attack twice while dual-wielding light weapons has subtly changed. So instead of being covered in melee attacks, the rules for dual-wielding light weapons are covered under the light weapon property. So that's going to be, so for instance, a dagger is up here and it has the light property. So that's one. Short sword also has the light property. But I don't think that short sword is going to have Nick because there is a short sword down here under a different weapon mastery property. So definitely dagger. Okay. It still functions the same way when you make an attack with a weapon that has the light property. You can make a bonus action to make one attack with a different light weapon you're wielding. Remember, you have to make a weapon attack. The Nick Mastery property allows you to make the additional attack you receive from wielding 2 light weapons as part of the initial attack. So you have 2 daggers, and you'll be able to use the property to attack twice. An additional attack you receive from wielding 2 light weapons. So, and that attack doesn't add your ability modifier to the damage. So, but this allows you, so keep in mind this doesn't mean you can use your third attack as a bonus action, but as the light property specifies, you only get one extra attack. But while it may not pump up your damage, it frees the bonus action to use class special abilities such as Rogue's Cunning Action, yes, while still getting an extra attack. Hopefully they're not changing the Swashbuckler, so you can run in as the Swashbuckler with this, make your primary attack with a dagger, make your offhand attack with your dagger because it has the nick property, and then you can use your bonus action to bolt out. And because the Swashbuckler attacks something, there's no attack of opportunity against that opponent. So hopefully they're not changing that. So that seems like it's going to allow a lot of maneuverability for kind of rogue characters. So I'm going to give this one, I like that. I'm going to give this one an A-. I think that's really good. Okay. Push is the next one. And it's usable with the Great Club as the example, so we know that, and we know Great Club is probably not going to have Graze or Cleave. So sometimes giving an enemy a simple shove off a cliff or into a pit of lava is all you need to win an otherwise tougher fight. Push Mastery property allows you to launch a creature you hit. Okay, so that means you have to use an attack roll and you have to hit them 10 feet straight away without a save. Okay, so this was like... There was a feat. I can't remember what the name of the feat was. Let's take a look here. There was a feat that did something very similar to this. I think it was Crusher. It was Crusher. And once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, you can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space. Okay. And provided the target is no more than one size larger than you. So this one basically does the same thing, but it's 10 feet and it does it when you hit. And I really, really, really like forced movement. I think forced movement is awesome. 10 feet is great. That's the same thing as repelling blast for the... it's the same thing as repelling blast for the... Warlock that you use with Eldritch Blast. So not only is this great combined with environmental hazards, yes, like lava, it's also great for escaping opportunity attacks, yes. If you or a less tanky party member are being harassed by an enemy, you can push it 10 feet away, which allow you some space. Okay. Keep in mind that you only push enemies large or smaller. So this doesn't say one size larger than you. It says large or smaller. So you're kind of stuck with that one. Now, I don't know if this is the full description of this, but if this one allows for damage and a push, I'm giving this one an A because I like forced movement so much. If it is only allowing you to do it on a hit and no damage, then I'm giving it a B. So it's kind of, we'll have to see what comes out in the book because I don't think these are the full descriptions. All right, the next one is Sap. They give an example of a mace. If your job is to distract enemies long enough for you to let your blaster, caster friends deal with them, Sap is a solid choice. When you hit an enemy with an attack, this mastery property inflicts disadvantage on your target's next attack roll before the start of your next turn. Kind of like what Vicious Mockery does, essentially, but it's with a weapon, and it gives you a reason to use a mace. Makes a mace better because maces kind of suck right now. So if we go back to this, mace is a simple weapon, and it has no properties, and it does with D6 of bludgeoning damage. So, okay, I think that gives people a reason to use it. So for heavily armored, tanky builds, your enemies will be so focused on trying to take you out that they won't even see the fireball coming. I don't. The best thing about this is it gives disadvantage. I'm going to give this one a B because disadvantage is a pretty big thing, especially if you do it every single turn. Now, the classes like the Armor Artificer, who have the Thunder Gauntlets, they give disadvantage against everybody except for you, but this gives disadvantage just on the next target's attack roll, period. So, I mean, we'll have to see. All right, the next one is Slow. And they are giving the example of a light crossbow, so excellent for fast builds that like to flit across the battlefield. So fast, they mean move fast. When you hit a creature and deal damage, you can reduce its speed by, so you have to hit it and you have to do damage. You reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. This combos excellently with light crossbow, allowing you to take shots, damage your opponents, and then move just out of range of their reduced speed. So it's important to note that a creature's speed can't be reduced by more than 10 feet with this property. But there's things like a couple of spells like, I think, Chill Touch or Ray of Frost that reduce speed. And there is a Eldritch Blast, I think it's Lance of Lethargy, which also reduces speed. So those things could actually stack. And you could, with this, you could reduce something to 0. So I'm going to give this one a B as well, because I do like, that's kind of controlling. I like a lot of control stuff. All right, Topple. They give us an example of a maul. Okay, here's the maul right here, heavy two-handed. So not reach, not going to be cleave. So with the maul, this mastery property is for all those builds that love to wail on their enemies with multiple melee attacks. When you hit a creature, you can force it to make a Constitution saving throw. Constitution saving throws are not one of my favorite saving throws, or fall prone. DC for this is 8 plus the ability modifier. So if you're a fighter, then you should have an 18 to a 20. So that could be 12 to 13. Used to make the attack plus your proficiency bonus. So 12 or 13 plus, let's say 3 for somebody who's 5th level. So a 15, that's pretty easy for most creatures to make. But if you wanted, you could clock on that wizard and make them fall prone. So it says a 5th level fighter with a maul could knock their opponent prone with their first attack, then use their second attack and action surge to make multiple attacks with advantage. That's the big thing, is once they go prone, you have advantage. So just remember, attacking prone enemies outside of 5 feet actually gives the attacker disadvantage on the roll. So this is good for you, maybe not so good for your party members who are using ranged attacks. But it doesn't look like prone is probably changing too much. Because I don't like Constitution saving throws, I'm going to give this one a B-, just because I don't think it's that great. Vex, they give the example of a short sword. So because it's a short sword, we are not going to be able to use the Nick property, probably. So having a weapon with Vex feels like a superior swordsman dancing around their opponent, striking at opponents until the battle is won. When you hit a creature and deal damage, the mastery property gives you advantage on the next attack roll before the end of your next turn. This is an excellent way for rogues to all but guarantee a sneak attack on their next turn. So when you hit a creature and deal damage, this property gives you advantage on your next attack roll. Okay, before the end of your next turn. Now, they give this stupid thing for rogues, all guaranteeing sneak attacks on their next turn. That's not what this is for. Really, what you want to do is, this is for a rogue combined with another class that gives multiple attacks, so that you can hit this something and then it gives you advantage on the next attack, and then you can use your sneak attack damage. So 5 levels of fighter, 5 levels of ranger, 5 levels of whatever are going to give you 2 attacks. I think, and they give this, now they didn't say what property like the bows have. That's the only thing. I think with this one, I'm just going to give this one a solid B. It's okay. Now, if you're an elf and elven accuracy is still a thing, then this is amazing. And then it goes to an A-. So if you're an elf with elven accuracy, this is going to go to an A-, because remember, with elven accuracy, if you have advantage, you don't roll 2 dice, you roll 3 dice. And you might want to be a Hexblade rogue with this one, because that's great. Hexblades will eventually get 2 attacks, And they can Hexblade's Curse something that gives a crit on a 19 to 20. And if you have Elven Accuracy, well, all three of those things go good. If those things are still going to be around, we just don't know if they're going to be around in the 2024 Player's Handbook, or if they're combining everything, and we're going to play with blended rules for a while. Which one of these do I think is probably the best one? I am going to say that probably push. If push allows you to push them and do damage, I think this is probably the best one, because I really, really love forced movement. I would say the next one that's probably the best one is going to be Nick, followed by maybe Cleave. So, I mean, we gave them all individual scores, so I think that's it. All right, I have yammered on long enough about this. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.